Hey, what's going on, GameLeapers? This is Iggs, and in today's video, we're going to be revealing the 5 most broken items for patch 12.22. So if you're not building these items or playing the champions that can abuse them, then you're really missing a trick here, because these items are by far the most broken in the game, and these are making some of the most OP champions that you know about. So we will be revealing what these items are, of course, and the champions and combinations you can use these with. But just remember, guys, this video is not going to help you, well, really improve, to be honest, as a player. You're still going to be the same hard-stuck player that you were before watching this. So if you do actually want to improve and learn the fundamentals of the game, learn all the micro, the macro you have to know about when you're laning, when you're jungling, whatever role you play, we have all the content for you on our website at GameLeap.com. So make sure you get exclusive access to that library of content by signing up through those links down below, and let's get into the 5 items. Now, coming in at number 5, we have one of those items that got brought back by the balance team for the preseason, this being Spiro Shogun. So for 3,400 gold, you get attack damage, you get ability haste, and you get a lot of HP. But people are going to be building this because it's going to empower your non-ultimate spells. So we're talking your Q, your W, and your E. And these spells, their ability haste, it's going to scale off bonus attack damage you have. So if we think about champions who build bonus attack damage, let's have a think. So if we go maybe to the top lane, right, where they're building items like Sundra, Trinity Force, Death Stance, Black Cleaver, these type of bruiser fightery items, these are going to synergize really nicely with Spiro Shogun and the Dragon Force passive. So if we do actually think about top laners for a second, or maybe even junglers, because bruisers do exist in the jungle, maybe champions like Riven. Like, ability haste is the most important stat for Riven. So Spiro Shogun works really nicely. Even though it's not built that much, it has one of the highest win rates in the game for Riven. Even champions like Nasus can make use of it, because having an even lower Q cooldown and a wither cooldown and your E being on a lower cooldown, this just makes you even stronger. And the same goes for any top laner. You name them. If we're talking about Fiora, if we're talking about Renekton, Jax, even Hecarim you might build this on in the jungle, there are a bunch of champions who can benefit from this. Just make sure, guys, you're building this on a champion who will appreciate the attack damage and the ability haste. That's the most important thing. And kind of like I was saying before, it might not be the most popular item in the game. In fact, it's only built in about 1 to 2 matches out of 100. That's really not that much, right? But the win rate is close to 60% when it is built. So if you are playing a champion who can make use of this item, do it. Test it out. Now is the time to see just how broken it is. Now, coming in at number 4 on the countdown, this isn't really, like, I would say, an innately broken item, but the reason this is on here is because of how the meta has kind of changed recently. So in our previous videos, I've talked about how the meta has kind of changed into a bruisey, drain tanky type meta, where DPS and Conqueror champions are going to be loving life, but also champions who love playing against champions with lots of HP. Because if we think of all the HP in the game right now, with the new items like Heartsteel, we have Frostfire, right? There are lots of tanky items giving you HP. Even Shogun gives you HP, as do lots of others. So if we're playing a champion that can build an item with some sort of tick damage, now we're getting somewhere, then you're probably going to be enjoying life. This is why Demonic Embrace is on this countdown. And since the change towards the end of Season 12, where they increased the AP from 60 to 75, and even though you're missing a little bit of HP, so it went down by 100, really not that bad, because you're getting it for the Azakana Gaze passive, where you're dealing damage based off the target's maximum HP. This is super useful, of course, for champions like Lilia, Singe, Mordekaiser, any kind of like AP bruiser who can build this item, maybe even Akali, when she has Heartsteel in her build as well. So the meta has really enabled Demonic Embrace to be one of the most broken items we have in the game. So again, lots of top laners, lots of junglers are going to relish this, but also supports as well, right? So we might be talking about Zyra, maybe Heimerdinger later in your build, maybe even champions like Shaco in the jungle as well. Demonic Embrace is just so powerful because there is so much health on the Rift at the moment. So if you are going to lock in a champion with AP, think about a champion who might be able to abuse this item for a better chance of getting LP. Now, coming in at number 3, I kind of alluded to this a little while ago. This is Heartsteel. So I mentioned Demonic Embrace with Akali, right? And then pairing this with Heartsteel. Remember, the passive from Demonic Embrace, where it's transforming some of that HP you have, the extra HP, into AP. This is really useful, of course, if you have HP from your other items. So Heartsteel, because you're getting 800, which along with Warmogs is the most amount of HP you can get from an item on the Rift. And what makes it even better is that it's a mythic item. So when you pair this with Demonic Embrace, you have so much extra HP, therefore AP. So you can actually just build like straight tank, but still deal as much damage as you would going full damage. So a champion like Akali is going to love this. But Heartsteel isn't just good for champions going with Demonic Embrace, of course. Can we think of maybe an attack damage item that would harmonize just as well with Heartsteel? Well, we pretty much have the AD iteration of Demonic Embrace, this being Titanic Hydra. Because the passive from this, the bonus HP you have from items, from runes, whatever it may be, this is getting pumped into attack damage. So if we think about champions who can maybe build Heartsteel and make use of the passive where you're dealing dealing damage depending on how long you're in combat for, maybe we can think of some. So we detailed Set in our previous kind of like low-key broken champions video. Now Set might be OP generally speaking, but with this build he's even more OP, but not enough people are building it. So Heartsteel, then with Titanic Hydra, maybe even a champion like Belveth, right? After you get Blade of the Rune King, if you get Heartsteel and then Titanic Hydra, exactly the same thing. The extra HP pretty much makes you unkillable, but you're still dealing as much damage as you would be if you were actually going some sort of like damage item build. So Heartsteel, the extra HP, pair this with one of those items, Demonic Embrace, Titanic Hydra. It is a legit combo, but Heartsteel on its own is even just innately broken, because rushing this item because of the passive in it, where your next attack will be dealing more damage if you are a close range melee champion, like we've talked about, Set, Akali, Belveth, other champions of course, and whether you build Titanic or Demonic Embrace after this, honestly doesn't even really matter. As a first item spike, it is incredibly strong, and I'd highly recommend if you are playing in the top lane, you think about picking a champion who can maybe abuse this item with Titanic or Demonic Embrace afterwards before it gets nerfed, which it probably will. Now speaking of getting nerfed, this item got hotfix buff recently, and to be honest will probably end up getting nerfed because the buff was too much and the item is performing so well at the moment. So coming in at number 2 in terms of being one of the most broken items in the game, this is Jackshow. Now this item, which is giving you health, armor, magic resist, ability A's, and of course a passive, which kind of acts like Rift Maker in a way, I guess. It's kind of just like the extended fighting item for tankier champions or bruisers or fighters, and that's the thing here, guys. So even champions like Yasuo, even champions like Udyr, even champions like Aurelia can build this item and make use of it. It is that busted. So even though it's not giving you attack damage, it's not giving you attack speed, the point is this: if you're a champion who has innately kind of like good DPS, so if we think about a champion for Aurelia for example, and let's face it, as Aurelia sometimes you don't even have to land your abilities to kill someone, but if you do have something like maybe Blade of the Rune King as your first item, and then you get a Jackshow afterwards, you have all the damage, the attack speed, the on-hit from Bork, and then you have the unkillable factor from Jackshow. And because you'll be lasting so long in fights, because you'll be having Conqueror of course, so the healing and the actual damage once this is fully stacked, it's kind of nutty, and then pair this with Jackshow, the amount of armor and magic resist you end up getting from this item, and the actual tankiness when it's fully stacked from the passive, it is so obnoxious to play against. So maybe you are playing one of these fighter bruisery type champions, and you're building kind of like the old items. Maybe with like Death's Dance, you might be building like Black Cleaver or something, and maybe even for your mythic, you're not going Jackshow. But I'd highly recommend guys just looking up for your champion if people in high relo are building this item, because it is so busted on so many of those picks. Especially when you think about it, lots of other champions are going to be building stuff like Heartsteel, and the number 1 item we'll get into very soon, you have to compete with them. Jackshow is your next best choice. And guys, just quickly, if you do want these videos to continue where we detail all of the important things that's happening in the preseason, and hopefully we're not just listing these items and that's it, we're actually giving you the reasons why they're broken at the moment. So yes, if you do want these videos to continue, if you have any ideas as well, like topics that you might want talked about, let us know in the comment section. And of course, if you do want them to continue, leave a like down below as well. Now the number 1 item, the number 1 broken item, I'm sure we've all seen this a bunch in the last week or so. This is an item that actually got hotfix nerfed. So in the same kind of like 1222B patch where Jackshow got buffed, this item got nerfed, and it's been so prevalent, prolific, and so OP. This of course is Ravenous Hydra. Now you might be thinking, oh, Ravenous Hydra, you can only build this on like kind of like melee champions, so maybe Riven, you know, top laners, Fiora, etc. And for sure you can. That's one of the big reasons why they're so busted. But you can honestly build this on like any champion, even ranged champions. If you're playing Graves, it's one of the most disgusting builds in the game at the moment. Ravenous Hydra into Gordrink, a Black Cleaver, get me out. If you're playing Hecarim, rushing Ravenous Hydra into like a Mirror Mana, get me out. If you're maybe playing Ezreal in the bot lane, getting a Ravenous Hydra at some point. Maybe not, because Ezreal is nowhere near as strong as those other 2 champions, but hopefully you get my drift here. Even with Zed, right, we talked about a couple of videos ago where you're building Ravenous Hydra as your first item. Kha'Zix with Ravenous Hydra. The wave clear it's giving you now, because of the carnivorous stacking in the passive, it helps you wave clear as quick as anyone, if not quicker than anyone. So if you're playing a champion who can build this, especially maybe even as your first item, during the laning phase, you outclear everyone, so you get the shove, and then you can go to roam around the map. As a jungler as well, it just accelerates your clearing process. So champions even like Rengar really benefit, right? Because Rengar does not have great area of effect damage. A champion like Nocturne, who does actually have a bit of AoE, he can still benefit greatly from Hydra. Remember, it's still giving you decent attack damage and a lot of ability haste. So for bruisers and for assassins, it's an incredibly valuable item, maybe even invaluable at the moment, because that is what is really defining the meta. If you cannot build Ravenous Ravenous Hydra, you're not going to be a top tier champion. If you can, you are a top tier champion. So consider these items, guys, going into your games, and maybe when you're like kind of devising and self-deliberating, I guess, your champion pools for next season, think about what items you want to build. Think about if you can actually synergize that champion you want to play with these items. It's going to give you a better chance of winning. But remember, these are just items. This is the what. It's all about the how you play in a game that makes you actually improve and win more games. So for all that how, in order to lane better, in order to understand about cooldowns, positioning, wave timers, back timers, all of those important details, check out the GameLeap website once again in the description and comment section to find out what the best players do in the world that you can easily do as well in your games. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I will see you on our next preseason upload. This has been Peace.